Good evening and welcome to another episode of Fresh Natural Life. It's Monday. I hope your day has gone well. And today we're going to talk about our toxic environment. The topic today is Do Not Die, Detoxify. And we've got a lot of good information in store for you this evening. So I want you guys to sit back, get your pen and pencil ready. You're going to be loaded down with lots of information. There won't be a quiz at the end. Perhaps there will be a quiz at the end. But either way, we're going to get started right now. All right. We have a great show tonight, as I said, and we're going to be talking about how you detoxify. Lots of people talk about detox, and there's a lot of detox products on the market and the like, and it's a buzzword that's going around. It's sometimes treated as a fad, but we really need to understand, what does it mean to detox? What does it mean when your body detoxes? And your body normally detoxifies itself. And so from an active aspect of detoxifying, I typically talk about patients about removing toxins from your system. So, we're putting too many toxins in. So often the first step of detoxing is to not tox. But my friend and colleague, Dr. Ford Atkins is going to be giving us an insight on how to detox. And he's going to look at the whole environment globally and how do we approach this. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my friends and colleagues on. First, Dr. Pamela Atkins. Hello, how are you doing this evening?
Hi, good, doing well. Good to see you. Good to be here.
Presenting tonight, Dr. Ford Atkins. How are you doing today, sir?
I am doing wonderful. Doing wonderful.
And fresh from Kittyland is Dr. Celeste Palmer, who flashed in and flashed out. Dr. Palmer, she was backstage, and then she flashed out. So I don't know if she lost connection. But anyway, Dr. Palmer, as soon as you get back in, I'll bring you on stage, and we'll get started. So, Dr. Atkins, can you reshare your screen? For some reason, I lost that share screen. If you can reshare it, when Dr. Palmer comes back on, there she is. Hello, Dr. Palmer. How are you doing?
How is everybody?
You're playing ghost on us tonight, in and out, in and out. So we've got your slides here. So anyway, so what is this detox concept? Let me just throw your slides up if you're ready for them. And if you want to kind of get us started, people talk about detox. Everybody wants to, detox, and, a lot of supplements are sold. What's your take on this detox issue or concept?
Well, first of all, I kind of preface this by saying that we live in a toxic world. The world is not the same world that Adam and Eve had. It's a different environment now because of how we have more and more man-made substances, chemicals, things in the world, and they find a way into our food system. They find a way into our air and water, and eventually into our bodies. And I think what I like when I talk to people, I really indicate to them that a large majority of health symptoms that we have, whether it's anything from respiratory, sinus, whatever the symptom is, there's an underlying cause that goes back to toxicity in some way, whether it's direct or indirect. So living in this world, detoxing is a part of that. So what I want to do tonight is we want to cover a little bit of what that means and understand why it's so important. Let me see. Are you?
So while you get your slides going, I want to encourage everybody to hit the thumbs up, and if you know someone who will benefit from this, share this as we are live. And of course, if you haven't had the time to subscribe, please subscribe. So thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Please do that all at once now. Thank you, Danielle Harding, for reminding me to say that. as I frequently don't remember to say that at the beginning of the show.
Now, do I have control?
You should have control of your slides. You should basically just control them on your slide deck. I just sort of shared the screen, but you have control.
Okay. Let me...
And while you do that, Stephen B. Fairweather, hello, sir. How are you doing? Danielle Harding, thanks again for the good evening and the reminder. Mary McCoy, how are you? Catherine Welch, Pat Lathrop, Stephen B. D. Fairweather, hello. He says, hi, Dr. Palmer. Melon Bynum Wilson, hello. Dellum, hello. Mary Thomas, hello. Leon Dancer, hello. Hello, everyone. All right, we can get started.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So glad to be with you this evening. And what we're going to talk about is detoxification. And I titled this "Don't Die, Detoxify," because I really emphasize to people that we think about aging and death as a function of time, how long you live, how well you live. But I want people to look at it in the term of how toxic. I really share with people, you really don't get old, you get toxic. Toxicity is what is one of the underlying concepts when it comes to aging. It causes us to age faster or slower. Your biological age as opposed to your chronological age is really depending on how toxic you are. And that's why we can see people who may be 60 years old, but when we look at their biological age, they may be 80 years old. Or some people who are in optimal health, they may be 80 years old and their biological age might be 55. So we want to really shoot for those optimal situations. So let's get into it. Detoxify, don't die. And I talk about here, detoxifying and cleansing your internal environment is a foundation of optimal health, wellness, and longevity. And those are the things we want. We want optimal health. Wellness means I want to live healthy continuously. And longevity, I want to live for a long time. And I want to point out one factor, though. I have the two words, detoxifying and cleansing. And understand those are two different concepts. Detoxifying is actually pulling toxins and chemicals and foreign substances out of your body, out of the cells of your body on the cellular level, as well as on the level of your organs. But cleansing is actually when we actually cleanse our organs, whether it's our kidneys, our liver, our gallbladder, spleen. We want to actually cleanse those organs so they can do the work of detoxifying also. So it's really a two-step process. It's not just detoxifying. Some people say, I'm going to do a cleanse this weekend. Well, that's fine, but did you really detoxify because you cleanse? Cleanse will give you the ability to be able to detoxify better, but we want to be able to include both of them if you want to be thorough in achieving optimal health. An overloaded congestion colon, parasites, gallstones, toxic debris all interfere with the body's ability to function properly, as well as severely hampers the immune system. So, a lot of philosophers, when it comes to health and wellness and nutrition, begin by saying that life and death begins in the colon. So the wellness of your life can begin in the colon, depending on what you're eating and your nutrition. And also death can start that way, because if the colon and digestive system, the GI system, is not functioning properly, it will not fare well for you. So let's talk about, how do we become toxic? And I bring this up first because one question when I consult with people about doing detox, they ask me the question, well, how do I know I'm toxic? And my first statement is, well, if you walk on planet Earth in 2020 or since 1970 or 1950, you're probably toxic.
Better go a long way back, but anyway, we understand. We get the point.
Yeah. So, and there are two factors we want to talk about: the internal factors and also the external factors. Now, when we talk about becoming toxic, here are some of the most common causes, and most people are familiar with them. So I'm going to run through them really quickly here. Number one is poor diet. Well, let me put the first one is poor diet. So the pictures to the left shows processed food, cans, boxes, cartons. So if you're eating that way, I would consider that a poor diet, because you're getting nutrient foods really lacking the nutritional value that you need to maintain optimal health. And if your favorite restaurant is a place that has a drive-in, then you're probably on a poor diet too. Because restaurants that have a drive-in, the foods are processed, the foods are designed for you to pick up and go, and that requires a whole different process. So poor diet. Overconsumption. Everybody really knows what overconsumption is. It means that you're really eating too much. I classify overconsumption as Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthday. Let's go out for the weekend, have something to eat. Any opportunity we get to socialize with food, and we eat so much food. And if you eat and you're able to really overconsume to where you really get full, then it's going to pile up into your system, and it's going to cause a toxic overload. Lack of exercise. Now, lack of exercise, if you move and circulate, you can actually, your muscles, your circulation does a work of helping to rid your body of toxins, of things that accumulate, whether it's just cleansing your colon, or whether it's actually pulling toxins and chemicals out of your system. The next one is stress. Sometimes I really want to put stress as one of the second most powerful things when it becomes toxic, because the whole stress mechanism can contribute to toxicity just by the way our body is designed to work. And we can go in that. That's a whole nother lecture, but take my word, stress is one way that we can easily become toxic. Antibiotics. Antibiotics have a good purpose, but they also can be very detrimental when it comes to health and toxicity. And mainly because antibiotics not only kill pathogens or the bad bacteria that we want to kill, but they also kill our good bacteria, which is necessary and essential for being able to break down and assimilate and digest food. And when you take that mechanism out of the digestive process, then we build up with foods that don't get properly digested. So many other processes are broken down just by the.
I like your list there. Before I flip back real quick, those, it's interesting, and the order is good. One comment is that all those things all interplay with each other too.
Yes.
So you get the poor diet. If you is nutrition deficient, then it's going to force you to overconsume more poor food, which will create an inability to exercise, because you may have inflammation, arthritis, etc., and you're not able to move. Maybe your heart's weak. Then stress, poor food creates an adverse response to stressful environments, which you should be able to handle better. And then the stress adds more detox and forces you to eat more bad food.
Yes.
And of course, you get the sniffles, and everybody throws antibiotics at you. But it's really interesting. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I'm chuckling, but it's unfortunate how they interplay with each other. So it's not additive necessarily. It could be multiplicative.
Absolutely. And we're going to add these last three to it because, and you're right, they absolutely play together because one leads to another. And once you introduce the antibiotics in there, or anything that disrupts your normal digestion of food, you're going to end up with constipation. But it's a couple of things you can say about constipation. And what I consider constipation is if a person is eating 3 meals a day and you're having one elimination a day, I consider that constipation, because it should be food in, food out. If you're eating 3 meals a day, there's nothing wrong with having 3 eliminations a day, at least 2 a day. That way you're always expelling the food that doesn't build up in your system and creates a toxic effect. And the next one is lack of water. Lack of water is directly tied to the constipation and also the detoxification process, because you want to dilute the chemicals. You want to flush yourself. You want to drink enough water, adequate amount of water to be able to flush, number one, and also prevent things like constipation, because constipation, your stools are dry and hard, and it's usually directly related to the amount of fluids, especially water, that you're drinking. And finally on this list is eating late at night. And people say, well, how does that happen? Well, our day is divided up into 3 parts. Our day is divided up into morning, 8 hours in the morning, afternoons, and night, and 8 hours. So for 16 hours a day, our body is designed to eat and process food at some point. You might eat more during the first the first third of the day or the second third of the day, but you have to have a rest period where your body is able to take a rest, to cleanse itself, to rehabilitate, to rejuvenate, to replenish, to repair. And those things are usually what happens at night. So when you eat late at night, your digestive system does not get a time to do those things. And when it doesn't do those things, it ends up becoming toxic because it's still processing food, and that's a primary goal of the digestive system, and it never has time to rest or cleanse. It never gets a break. So the whole idea of getting up in the morning and having a breakfast, well, I don't want to call it breakfast, we want to call it breaking the fast, or break fast, is that we fast during the night. And when you don't do that, our toxic overload will just increase. So let's look at the external factors, because these are just as important. The internal factors, what I just mentioned, are things that we can kind of have control over. Once we realize what they are, we realize what our physiological and psychological components those things are, then we can, put a plan together and eliminate that. And that's what, most, I guess, facilities will do when it comes to coaching or teaching people how to do those things. Now, these are the things, again, that are really are indirectly in our control, and we're going to talk about that a little later, but pesticides. Pesticides is a big, big thing when it comes to our food system. Our food has become poison, and how I like to identify it, if we understand the facts that each year there are about 1 billion with a B pounds of pesticides applied to the U.S. farms, forests, lawns, golf courses, everywhere in our environment. This more than 17,000 pesticide products are currently on the market. And this statistic is about 5 years old, and there are at least hundreds of new pesticides being introduced into the system every year. So I'm sure that this is well over 20,000 pesticide products on the market right today. A second external factor is eating genetically engineered food or genetically modified food. And what that does, this is food in which the DNA material of a foreign species, like an insect or a virus that's implanted from an animal or plant, is input into our fish, is put into our food system to create a more desirable food. Like they might use scorpion venom as an example to put in tomatoes. And this is a DNA strand of scorpion venom into tomatoes, because what it does is it prevents certain bacteria and mold from destroying tomatoes. The goal is to maintain beautiful, healthy tomatoes to get into the market without having spots on them or something. But if you see things like strawberries that's been genetically modified, we see a blue strawberry, which is really only one blue fruit, which is blueberries. You know that it's been manipulated in some way. And the biggest factor is that a lot of the genetically engineered food, our body doesn't have the enzymes or the capability to properly digest them. And then we eat them. They irritate our gut with things like gastric reflux, gastritis, Crohn's disease, leaky gut syndrome. All these symptoms we have is your digestive system is rejecting the foods we're putting in. And we see more and more of that. And there's a lot of evidence related to genetically modified foods. And just to continue on the fact of genetically modified foods, here are 10 of the foods that are top 10 of genetically modified foods, things you would never consider that may be genetically modified. So you want to be careful that you choose organic, you choose heirloom, you want to choose a plant or fruit that has not been manipulated. And if it doesn't say it's not, you assume it is, whether it's corn, soy, cotton. And I was really surprised at things like papaya was genetically modified product. But just to give you an idea, I wanted you to look at that list right there.
Wow.
Dr. Floyd?
Yes.
And what about, are all seedless fruit genetically modified by definition, or is it hybridized, or what?
Well, by definition, because when plants were made, they were made to reproduce. So most all plants are designed or originally had seeds, because that's how they replicate and reproduce. So if you see something without seeds, and definitely genetically modified, because we start off with things like watermelon. That was one of the first genetically modified foods, because people didn't want to eat seeds or didn't want to swallow seeds in the watermelon. And so when you say seedless watermelon, that's a problem. When you see seedless anything, it's a problem for me, because I know that God didn't create it seedless, because otherwise it have no ability to reproduce. So yeah.
In Genesis 1:29, it specifically said it must eat seed-bearing food. It's the seed-bearing food is specifically stated there. So he didn't make it's no doubt.
Yes, at Genesis 1:29, and I want people to hear that too. It has to be seed bearing, and people kind of shy away from seeds a lot of time, like seeds are a problem or they spit them out. But you have to realize that seed is the most powerful part of a fruit anyway, because this is where the embryonic, the power and the nutrition to grow into a plant starts with the seed. So you get a lot from the seed. So foods that we eat that are seeds, whether it's a sesame seed or whether it's a seed, corn or soy, whatever it is, that's where the energy of the plant is. So it's nothing that we should always throw away. It may be something we include. There are some seeds we have to stay away from, like this picture of a tomato. What we find out with tomatoes tend to have lectins or have a protective mechanism that protects you from eating tomato, and it interferes with digestion. So when I eat tomatoes, I don't eat seedless tomatoes. I just squeeze the seeds out of the tomatoes and eat the tomato meat itself.
Catherine Welch wants to know if the organic tomatoes have the insect venom too. I was thinking they just put snake venom in those since they're more expensive.
Well, no, they don't. The idea if they're classified as organic, they should not be manipulated in any way. They should be low pesticides or no pesticides and not manipulated in any way. So your option is to really go for the organic or even an heirloom. Heirloom are maybe seeds that may be hundreds to thousands of years old that have not that are made from the original strain, as far back as the seed, it's where they get seed banks from, where they get the seeds from. So
speaking of heirloom, Floyd, I'm sorry to interrupt. One quick question. I noticed, and maybe it's just me, being psyched out.
Yeah,
the heirloom organic tomatoes in the supermarket looks a little bit more uniform than they used to when I started seeing them. Is there something to that, or maybe I'm just, they still kind of look a little bit, less uniform than the others, but they look a little bit more uniform than I remember them being when I first saw them.
And you're probably right. I don't have proof of how that happens, but I can tell you when big agribusiness start producing the heirlooms, what they would have to do is make them where they would be able to make it to the market. Because a lot of times, if you look at heirlooms, by the time they get to the market, they're either too soft, they're starting to rot already. So what I suspect is they hybridize, they're making hybrids out of the heirlooms. So they look more uniform, they can pack them better, and they will last longer. So I still think they're manipulated. They can call them heirloom, but they have been manipulated some way, because if you look at a true heirloom, one tomato would not look like the other one, even in color or size.
I know that for the apples, and I think I told you this, Dr. Montgomery, I asked somebody who works in the grocery, not just in the store, but in like headquarters, they grow them in crates. So they grow a certain size because they're restricted from growing outside of that box. So there are a whole lot of little things that they cannot grow out. They can only grow inside that space. So that's what they do with the apples, because the apples are also about the same size if you look at produce.
This is crazy. I'm sorry. It's sort of like what they do the cows with the what do you call the veal? So you got veal apple.
They beat the cattle. But yeah, and it's all for the sake of maximizing profit, because it's better to have 100 small apples than 10 big apples. They can charge more per apple in the whole process. So you're right, Dr. Palmer, about that. Another big external factor when it comes to being toxic is water. And these are some of the headlines, the water headlines. Everybody's familiar with, for the last few years, about the Flint water supply, that Flint has this lead in the water. But when we do research and we look at the water system across America, we find that excessive lead levels in almost 2,000 water systems across all 50 states. You can't go to a state that you won't find an excess lead level in. So don't everybody just point a finger at Flint and say, "Oh, I'm glad I'm not in Flint," because it's probably in your water, in the water system in your state. So those are things we need to evaluate too. Over 260 chemicals in the drinking water in 42 states. So you're not just drinking water when you're drinking water. You're actually getting a good chemical cocktail. And then we'll talk a little bit about that. 45 million in the U.S. have pharmaceuticals in their drinking water. Again, I apologize. This statistic is probably 4 to 5 years old. And based on continued research that comes out, it's much, much higher than that. There are very few drinking systems in the country that doesn't have pharmaceuticals in water. Because, by the way, most water treatment plants don't have the ability to move pharmaceuticals from the water once they go in. They can cleanse the water, but the pharmaceuticals are still there. Every major U.S. city east of the Mississippi River underreport heavy metals in their water. And I don't know exactly why they do that, other than if they reported it, then it would cause panic in people who were concerned about the heavy metals. But heavy metals have a direct effect on mental function. And so it's a dangerous thing for kids and small children, but also adults as well. For people in Houston, Texas, KHOU did a report several years ago, as a matter of fact, multiple reports on radioactive particles found in water in Houston, that you have ground radiation actually gets into the water. So, the fact that being in that part of the country, there's a lot of radiation, ground radiation that people get exposed to just beyond radon. There are other radioactive materials that affect, So, Dr. Montgomery, it makes me wonder why we have the #1 cancer center in the planet in Houston, Texas. Was that a coincidence or why?
We gotta
Also,
get rid of the alpha-bevel.
Real quick, Dr. Atkins, it's funny that you said that, because I just got an article. We get all of these emails, from medical journals. But I just got an article that says uranium is in 2/3 of U.S. community water.
Yeah.
And, of course, that's connected to many things. But, we think of cancer, but it even contributes to high blood pressure and the other things that kind of lead to the worst diagnosis, but it contributes to some of the other smaller things, or relatively smaller things, like high blood pressure, headaches, things that we don't really think of as chronic medical issues.
Yeah, and even fatigue, and I think when it comes to fetal development, or when it comes to sperm count in men, that the radioactivity will affect those things. So when we see low sperm rates, and we see, people have a more difficult time to have babies, I'm always concerned that where is this coming from? This, throughout history, having babies has never been a really big problem, as far as my knowledge is. But now it seems to be a major issue with the fertility clinics and people going through a lot of, I guess, financial hardships just trying to have a baby. So the radioactivity is a big thing, and we really have to consider those things. So, and in the future, I want to really talk about things we can do when it comes to dealing with the water. A couple other things about water in tap water, because people say, well, the water in my city is good, or my tap water is good, because the city said it was good, it was okay. But when a city water system says your tap water is okay, it's okay for the things they test for. Most water systems test for things like chlorine, and this is a contaminant. Chlorine, they test for lead, they test for arsenic, they might test for mercury, but they only test for maybe 6 or 8 different chemicals that I find out. But if you have over 200 or 300 chemicals in the water, that leaves a lot of things that's undesirable in the water. The pathogens in the water. And in this list, in the second list, it has chloramines. And for people who don't know, chloramines is when you add chlorine and you add ammonia to the water. That's how they disinfect water, especially for bacteria, molds, fungus, and viruses. That's how they disinfect the water at the water treatment plant. So the chloramine actually kills all the pathogens that's in the water, the majority of them, maybe 99%. But the chemical itself remains in the water, the disinfectant in the water. So when you're drinking tap water, you're drinking disinfectant as well as the water. You're just not getting it only. And the trihalomethanes is another disinfectant that still resides in water. It's designed to destroy a lot of other particulate matter in the water. But when it comes to leaves and it comes to twigs and other things, it breaks those things down. But that trihalomethanes is still in the water. So we're drinking that. We're drinking the disinfectant as well as the water. VOCs are volatile organic compounds, which are basically your household cleaners, pesticides, detergents, pharmaceuticals. We talked about that. Industrial waste. That's Pasadena, Texas, for people who don't know. So, Texas City, Galveston, you could go up the coast, and you could go to New Jersey, you could go everywhere. But for everybody, what I want to emphasize is that in our water, tap water, these are the top 3 contaminants, which is petroleum products, like gasoline, industrial chemical, and PCBs. Also organophosphates, which are your pesticides, herbicides, and insecticides. And again, prescription drugs, the antibiotics, they found anticonvulsive, mood stabilizers, and sex hormones like your Viagra, your Levitra, your Cialis, and so many different pharmaceuticals in the water. So beware. the last and most important thing, which people are really not aware of, is the EPA just came out with reports in the last 3 years talking about what they call forever chemicals in drinking water. And I was really shocked because they admitted that there are chemicals in the water that they have no way to remove. There's no chemical process. Even if you purified your water, you really can't get them out. There are ways, there are systems that will do it, and I could talk about that. But they just in the general treatment of water systems across America, they don't remove these chemicals. And these chemicals are known as PFAS or perfluoro acetyl substances, which is basically a chemical that's produced when they make Teflon, when they make fast food wrappers, stain-resistant carpet, furniture polishes, non-stick cookware, any water repellent, any fire retardants. Those chemicals actually get into our water system and they can't get them out. And they tend to accumulate over time and over time. And as time goes by, it's more and more in there. This report was in the Miami Herald just in February 2020, but just even last month, the EPA just issued another list of the top 30 PFASs that were in our water system, and they keep increasing. And there are a few water systems that get them out, and I'll share that information with you also. Finally, chemicals like in cosmetics. And these are something that we don't think of, but we have to really consider everything, how we become toxic from all these external sources. There are so many. So when we talk about doing a detox and cleansing, this can show you how important it is, because if you participate in the world, if you participate in any of these avenues, you're gonna build up your toxic load. Toluene is found in most of our cosmetics. It's made from petroleum or coal tar, found in most synthetic fragrances. So when you look at any kind of a cologne or perfume that we can buy on the market today, and I always tell people you can identify those synthetic products because they're very strong. It's like, a person put on the cologne and they can walk down a long hallway and you can smell them 20, 30 feet away because that odor lingers. That's the whole idea of making a synthetic cologne, that one of the odor, a fragrance that would not go away. Same thing with nail polishes; they have toxic materials in them. And one thing with these chemicals, it says chronic exposure linked to anemia, low blood cell count, liver and kidney damage, and also may affect fetal development. I'm sure it does. But liver and kidney damage, those are the organs that detoxify, but they get damaged from the chemicals that's going through them on a daily basis. Formaldehyde, which people would be surprised to find out it's in our mouthwash, it's in eyelash glues, it's in hair gels, even baby shampoo. We're exposing our babies and small children to formaldehyde. And formaldehyde is a toxic ingredient. So we have to be aware of that. In Japan and Sweden, chemicals and cosmetic and toiletries with formaldehyde are banned. They don't allow their consumer market to get to them. But in America, we have freedom. So let's talk about solutions here, what we can do. I want to really break down what this detoxification thing is all about. And basically what I show this graph here is this chart here to kind of give a person an idea of what we do to detoxify. And basically at the top here is showing that, showing pictures of waste from cans and the pesticides and the processed food, alcohol, cigarettes, and air pollution. They're all of the ways that we toxify ourselves. And so it shows a gentleman here, he's down on his knees and exposed to all these different substances. And what this picture shows me, that one of the first symptoms of being toxic is fatigue. As we tend to age, you can't do the things you did in your 20s and 30s, and we think it's because we're 40 or 50, but it's really because we are more toxic than we were when we were in our 20s and 30s. That is a big interference with fatigue. We say, well, I don't feel like doing that anymore. Well, really, we don't have the energy to do that anymore. So we want to do things because we find out when we do a detox, one of the main benefits of it is your energy levels increase. And so that shows me that there's a relationship between toxicity and fatigue and energy. And one thing I want people to understand, and I'm going to go through this graph really quick here. When we eat food, the first place it goes down, this green thing represents our toxin here. It goes into our colon. And so once it goes in our colon, it's going to be processed and digested. When toxins go into our colon, the first place they go out of the colon is into the liver, because the liver's job is to detoxify, it's a filter. It's one of the major filters in our body. But once that filter fills up, probably about, I used to say by the age of 30, but in today's world, by the age of 18 or 17, your liver is pretty well toxic. Normally what we would do is, if it was our car, if it was our house, we would change the filters. But in our livers, we don't really do that. I ask people all the time, when is the last time you cleanse your liver? And they look at me like calf standing in a new gate. I don't know what you're talking about. I said, you have to cleanse your liver. When is the last time you cleanse your kidneys? It's, they just have their mouth open. So we have to do those things, because once a liver becomes toxic like this, the liver says, I have to detoxify myself, so I have to put these toxins someplace else. I can't leave them in the bloodstream, or the person will be sick and have no energy. So the liver looks for places to store toxins, and the best storage unit are fat cells. So we see that the liver would take the toxin and put it in body fat. So what happens is, the body fat you have is a storage unit for toxin. It takes it out of our digestive system and it puts it in a place that it can not be a problem for us. And if you don't have body fat, the more toxins you eat, the more your body, you would tend to gain more weight. You would tend to produce more fat just to store toxins up. So I always tell people, being overweight is a function of eating too much, and also being a function of being highly toxic. The more toxic you are, the more weight you have, the more toxic you're probably going to be. And then the second place here, it says our brain, and understanding that brain neurons, our nerve cells in our brain are all coated with a layer of what we call phospholipid. It's a layer of phosphorus and lipid, a phospholipid, but to the liver, all it sees is fat, lipid or fat cells. So it's another place it can store toxins. And so when it stores these toxins, these metals, these pesticides, these chemicals into our brain cells, it makes our brain not function properly. The first sign of a toxicity is memory loss, short-term memory loss. We go to a party, we sit down, we meet people. How you doing, John? How you doing, Mary? We talk to them 2 sentences, and then you can't remember their name. You say, excuse me, can you tell me your name again? Or you don't remember things like that. Brain fog, where you tend to lose your train of thought. People think, well, I'm getting old again, I'm getting senile. No, it's toxicity again when you start having a brain fog. So all those things are related. And I could go on and on and on, but for the sake of time, if those 2 things are your issues, then you can understand where this may be coming from, and there is something you can do about it. So any toxicity program or detox program you do, the first thing you want to do before you start pulling the chemicals out of your body is you want to cleanse your colon, you want to cleanse your liver, you want to cleanse your kidneys, especially your colon and the kidneys, because these are the 2 routes of elimination out of your body. If these routes of elimination are congested, impacted, not filtering well, then what happens is that when you try to detox organs, everything backs up and the person becomes sick. I've had many people, our coaches, coach me and said, Doc, I tried to do detox, but after about 2 or 3 days, I just got sick. I headache, I'm shaky, I'm sweating, I'm having all these symptoms. We call that a timer reaction. But actually what's happening is that we need to do more of a cleansing and then a detoxing, and you'll get a better outcome. And so, I always encourage people to really get as much information about detoxing from a credible source before you just look at the internet of what somebody else did and think you can do that, because everybody's body is different. So you have to really customize and do a program that's really fit for you. As example here, internal detoxification and cleansing, it can lower cholesterol levels. It may reduce your blood pressure. You shed pounds and reduce body fat. I call it a side effect because it's not for weight loss, but that's a side effect we always see. Achieve better blood sugar control, reduce allergy symptoms, increase your overall wellness, increase mental alertness, which we all want, and just assist you in staying well. This picture of this young lady here, this is actually about 8 weeks difference after doing a 40-day detox. This was an herbal-based detox, but this is just a difference in just changing diet, doing the cleansing. And, like Dr. Pamela always reminds me that at least 90% of improves in symptoms goes back to the diet. It goes back to the diet. Diet is always number one. The herbs that we use in our cleansing program are only to assist in the cleansing and assist in your body functioning better. But the diet is a king when it comes to this. And just for the area of completeness, and I know people who have done detoxes before, there are many ways to detox depending on what health issues or health concerns you have. So what I've mentioned so far was an herbal detox and cleanse, but fasting also is a form of detox. It's very popular to do intermittent fasting right now, knowing how to do it properly, what you're fasting from. Fasting doesn't mean completely stopping everything, but you can decide if I'm going to, stop eating certain foods. Am I going to eat, foods that doesn't require a lot of digestion? Am I going to do a cleansing fast? There are a lot of options for that. Infrared sauna, far infrared sauna. A far infrared sauna is infrared emissions that causes us to sweat, but it doesn't raise our body temperature to the point where it can be unbearable. You can have an infrared sauna at up to 140 degrees, but it won't feel that hot. And what that does is cause you to sweat. The second most efficient way to detoxify is sweating. That's why exercise is so important and running is so important. Hydrotherapy, that's whirlpool baths, is a good way to detox. Mainly because it's not so much the water, but what it does to our lymphatic system. It mobilizes the lymphatics in our bodies, but also and then the hydration tends to help with a detoxification process. So depending on where you are in your health status, you have to kind of start at one point. It can move to a different level each time. Salt baths are astringent. They actually pull toxins out of your skin. They pull toxins out of your body. It's like soaking in a salt bath. And whether it's magnesium sulfates or magnesium salts. Dry brushing is lymphatic stimulation, where you actually stimulate your lymphatics. When the lymphatics are stimulated and move, it will remove toxins out of your system. Lymphatic massage, therapeutic massage is an excellent way to detoxify, because again, you're mobilizing toxins that's in your subcutaneous tissue. You improve your circulation. So again, you're going to see a benefit by it. And aerobic exercises, being on a rebounder, walking, vigorous walking, any activity you do, whether it's yoga, whether it's going to the park, exercise, aerobics, whatever you choose to do, it's important to do it consistently on an everyday basis, because it's a way I call them mini detoxes. Even as simple things as simple as breathing and relaxation techniques can be a way to detoxify. When you breathe, you exhale toxins by actually doing deep breathing, inhaling and exhaling. But these are things we can kind of contribute. It's not just one thing. We want to make sure that detoxification is multifactorial, that you do all of these things. And I'm gonna run through this. This was an herbal-based detox. It was a program we do in our facility, where we actually do lab work before and after to be able to look at actual values of what's happening to a person's body before they do the detoxing after. That way you can have hard cold information to see how you improve and how things you can do to improve. We actually will customize this program depending on what goals the person wants to achieve through their detox. We do a 14-day colon kidney cleanse first, because we want to clean those two areas first so we can be efficient in our detoxification. We do a 30-day parasite heavy metal detox. Heavy metals and parasites, molds, fungus, yeast, virus, and heavy metals. Really, when we do that part, people can really see a significant difference in the way they feel. And finally, we do a 24-hour liver gallbladder flush, which really cleanses out all the toxic debris out of our liver. And our gallbladder is full of cholesterol stones or cholesterol formations that need to be eliminated. And we'll go into more detail. And then we do a follow-up program that is dependent on doing a maintenance program. We have a nutritional supplementation plan and an eating plan. I call it a Eat for Life plan. Just to give people an idea of what they can expect from a detox, especially this type. This was a gentleman who was 57 years of age, and he came to us with before and after, and you can just kind of see. I'm going to just run through this real quickly here. Triglycerides 399. And normally we want our triglycerides to be under 150. All the way to the right says the normal values, which most labs will indicate what the normal range should be for these particular tests. Cholesterol, his cholesterol was 261, HDL was 49, LDL 132, hemoglobin A1C was 10.2. And one of the reasons he came to us, he had been diagnosed diabetic with a 10.2 hemoglobin On this sheet, it was considered 6.0, less than 6.0 was non-diabetic. Although today most labs have 6.5, they kind of raise the number that they consider non-diabetic. And also blood pressure 138 over 92, weight 197. But after doing this, and he did this detox probably, it was about 8 weeks later. It shows that he did the blood work in December. I think he started after January, after New Year's, and he did the detox, and he finished up just at the end of March. We did blood work again at the beginning of April. But you see his triglycerides went from 399 to 62. Now this no medication, we didn't use medication, anything. This was just strictly diet, following the program, doing herbal-based cleansing. But again, we have to sticking to a plant-based, organic diet as much as possible. Cholesterol went from 261 down to 174. So no cholesterol-lowering medicines. If you really choose this way, you can do it. I mean, it was evident. What we wanted to see better, his HDL, is good cholesterol, went from 49 to 53. We could get improvement with that, but you have to do things by doing more omega oils, like doing your hemp seed oil and your flaxseed oil, and doing chia seeds, more things that are high in omega, which we really incorporate in our program right now. And depending on where people are, we will adjust those. His LDL, or his bad cholesterol, went from a 132 down to 109. Our goal is to get that down under 100, but getting to 109 was a good first step. Reducing his risk for heart attack and stroke. And then hemoglobin A1C, and this was amazing that he was diagnosed diabetic. They had written him a prescription for metformin and had him set up to start his medication. But once he did this detox program, his hemoglobin A1C dropped from a 10.2 to a 5.9. He actually dropped out of the diabetic range. So he dropped into the pre-diabetic range, and we can work on that because we'd like to get our hemoglobin A1Cs down to 5.4, 5.5, no higher than 5.5. That way you have room to wiggle in case you have some missteps. It even had effect on his blood pressure. We saw his blood pressure improved. The systolic is doing much better, and that's something that's continues, has to be worked on depending on again, diet. Weight loss, he lost 5 pounds. His goal wasn't to lose weight, but he did a 5-pound weight loss, and his percentage body fat actually decreased some.
The heart rate went down significantly, resting heart rate from 74 to 60, which is pretty important. And we see on the detox, when we do like hemodynamics, the cardiac stroke volume may have gone up. We've seen that, and vascular resistance go down. So that 14 beat per minute drop in heart rate is very, very significant from a cardiovascular standpoint in the setting of a decreased blood pressure, because the double product, he went from a double product, which I should have calculated, but this double product of heart rate times systolic blood pressure went down very significantly. So it's less stress on the heart. So that's huge. These changes here are very, very impressive.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to say something, but I wanted to say that in addition to emphasizing plant-based, also raw. The goal with this program is 80% raw, so that's very crucial in being successful on this diet. And as far as increasing the HDL, now we emphasize omega-3s, but in the hemp seed, chia seeds, flax seeds, and if people are allowed to do walnuts in moderation, but as opposed to oils or oil products or capsules, we do we now recommend so many tablespoons of the seeds.
And the HDL change, I mean, I'm not, we see a drop in HDL when people detox, and the LDL drops, and the ratios, of bad to good drops to a great extent. So the HDL, whether it stays the same or drops, it doesn't bother us. And that LDL of 109 like I said, you like it below 100, but the fact it dropped so much, I think it is still very impressive. So, I mean, those are all great numbers.
Yeah. And this is just another example here. It basically, you kind of see the same things again. And like Dr. Pam mentioned, I think the raw plant-based diet, it really changes things. It's a game changer when it comes to these lab values. Triglycerides dropped almost over 100 points here. Cholesterol went down 50 points. HDL, like I said, didn't change significantly there. LDL dropped 17, 56, 20, 30 points, 27 points. And hemoglobin A1C, again, he's borderline what we call pre-diabetic at 6.0, but dropped to 5.4, just dropped again out of the diabetic range. But that shows you how powerful that the diet is when it comes to the food and comes to choices we make when we eat. Again, blood pressure is a big issue here. And to see this blood pressure 150 over 98 and it dropped down to 120 over 80, after that. So, Dr. Montgomery, would you think that's related to salts and chemicals in the food, or what would you attribute a blood pressure change like that to?
Yeah, I mean, you're removing lots of things. And we talk about salt a lot, which is important to remove salt. But as you mentioned and alluded to, a lot of the preservatives and other chemicals are very problematic as well. Yeah. And so we like to beat up salt, and maybe salt deserves being beaten up, but we need to beat up on the other bad components as well. Yeah. And so just removing processed foods and toxic chemicals is going to have a big impact on blood pressure, as you're saying. And of course, the weight comes down too.
Yeah, and the weight was, I think the weight was a big issue here because this gentleman was overweight. When I say overweight, you can be, and that's considered, if you're 30 pounds over what your recommended weight is. So if you're a 6-foot person and you weigh 175 pounds and you're 30 pounds or that, you're 205, that's overweight and obese when you're 40, 50 pounds overweight. But he dropped from a 20 down, it dropped 18 pounds in that period of time. And I think that was significantly affected blood pressure and some of these other numbers also. So a couple of solutions here goes back to fasting from a toxic food. And I started this program off, and Dr. Montgomery hit this from the very beginning that, the first thing we need to do is get the toxic food out. And that's exactly the truth. So fasting from toxic food, but we really recommend in general, these are things you can do before you actually even go to a doctor, before you talk to anyone. These are things you can do on your own. And when you present yourself to your doctor, you don't have to be afraid about your lab work, because if you're eating the right things, you put in the right things in, you'll get a good result coming out. 75% raw. That means when you look at your plate, 3/4 of that plate has to be foods that haven't been cooked or heated or minimally processed, marinated, maybe lightly sauteed, but we want to at least be 75% raw. Organic vegetables and fruits. I didn't say organic fruits and vegetables, like vegetables and fruit. I always emphasize vegetables first, because if I say fruits and vegetables, people get stuck on the fruit. They never get to the vegetables. So always vegetables first, and the fruit are the backup. The red rice and wild rice and black rice. And I recommend those over brown rice or white rice, only because those rices are really, wild rice is really a grain. It's a grass, excuse me. A grass is not really a grain like most other rice. It's a fruit of a grass. And so it doesn't have the same glycemic effect, which means it doesn't raise your blood sugar like white rice, or it doesn't have the starch level as white rice. Neither does red rice or black rice. They have a higher fiber content, which is better for blood sugar control, and lower carbohydrate content. Quinoa is another good option. And then when it comes to the beans, your black beans, your red beans, your pinto beans, nuts and seeds are always a part of the process, because you get so many minerals and vitamins from your nuts and your seeds that you need, and good oils as well. And I want to emphasize, when we do nuts, we want to do raw nuts and not roasted nuts. Nuts are loaded with oils, cashew oil, almond oil. And once you heat that nut up, you actually turn that oil in that nut from a good fat to a trans fat. And once that trans fat you start eating trans fats every day, then you're going to see your LDL numbers go up. Total cholesterol is going to go up. Risk for cardiovascular issues is going to go up just from eating all these trans fats from nuts. We had one client who followed our program, and he did everything. He ate nuts. And after we looked at it, his cholesterol levels increased. And we said, why? He said, well, I did everything. He said, I ate nuts. I said, well, what? And I had to ask him, what kind of nuts were you eating? And he said, well, I eat those planters nuts out of the can. I said, the ones that have your fingers greasy after you eat the nuts? He said, yes. I said, no, it says on there, look at your paper, it says raw nuts, because you actually get a healthy oil that way. So these are the little things that people have to be aware of to really get a good outcome and to do the right thing. Spring water or purified water, I always recommend above most of the other types of water. And this is the pesticide guide. I call it slide everything organic ? It doesn't have to be. I like to get as much organic as possible, but the environmental working group put out this chart called the Dirty Dozen, things that you absolutely need to get organic. Otherwise, your pesticide load is going to be really heavy. And as opposed to the Clean 15, which are things that you can eat that doesn't necessarily have to be organic because they don't use a high concentration of pesticides or no pesticides on some of these foods. So you can go to ewgenvironmentalworkinggroup.org and get their latest list. Every year they publish a list of the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15. Thin-skinned fruits like strawberries, greens, apples, grapes, peaches, those are all things that are highly sprayed with pesticides because insects love them and they spray them significantly. Just to give you an example, an apple, this conventional apple, that's a non-organic apple, it's probably sprayed over 36 times in the life cycle of that apple. So you're getting at least 36 pesticides or more when you eat it, and you can't peel it off and you can't wash it off. If you peel it or wash it off, you might, I guess, lose maybe 5% of the pesticides, but it's still, you're getting a heavy pesticide load. Whereas on the Clean 15, buying pineapples or buying avocados is not necessarily important to get them organic because they don't really use pesticides on those fruits, on pineapples. Insects just don't like pineapples. They don't have a lot of predators, and neither does the avocado. And it has sweet corn on this list, but I eliminate corn because, again, the corn in this country, unless it's organic, again, is genetic crop. But number two, understanding that we want to emphasize vegetables, and corn is not a vegetable. Corn is actually a starch. So when you eat corn, you're not eating a vegetable, it's a starch. It's just a point of information for those who love corn. Prevention solutions. Now, if we want to really be proactive about detoxifying, we want to keep ourselves from becoming toxic. What are the things that we can do ourselves, again, at home? Number one, microwaving and plastics. First, let me give a preamble to that statement. I think microwaving is an issue because microwaving actually changes the chemical structure of food. So when you microwave, you got to realize that the food that comes out of the microwave is not the same food that went in the microwave. It's a lot less digestible. The nutrient value has been changed. So many things have happened. There's a whole nother lecture we can talk about. But if you microwave in plastic, what you actually do is call the chemicals in the plastic. There's a chemical called a phthalate. It actually migrates from the plastic into your food. So when you put plastic wrap or Ziploc bags, or you'll see a lot of plastic that's microwavable, that means that the plastic won't break down, but it doesn't mean it's not contaminating your food when you do that. So anything that has an oil, like a meat or a sauce, again, microwaving plastic is a problem. It's a great source of toxicity. And when it comes to hormone disruptions, endocrine disruptors, that's where that all takes place.
Isn't it true?
Organic products.
I'm sorry. Isn't it true on those microwave popcorns? They say don't inhale the bag.
Yeah, that's that PFAS. Those are the forever chemicals that you don't get in water, but you get it in a plastic bag inside a popcorn bag, because they line those popcorn bags with a Teflon coating, that PFAS, and then they heat it because they don't want the popcorn sticking to the bag. And that's what will happen if they didn't do that. So it slips right out of the bag, it comes right out. But when you inhale that gas, you're actually, it's a toxic vapor you're inhaling. And there are groups out right now trying to ban those plastics in the Teflon coating inside the plastic bags, but it's an uphill climb against big food.
It's crazy. You can't inhale the gas coming from the bag, but you can eat the popcorn contents coming from the bag.
Yeah, the genetically modified popcorn that comes from the bag. Okay, again.
Oh boy.
No petroleum or mineral-based products for skin and hair. Please read the ingredient labels. If you see anything that looks like petroleum-based or chemical-based, you don't want to put it on your skin and hair because, again, 40% of the oil of whatever you put on your skin and water soaks directly into your bloodstream. That's the serious thing about skin. Skin is so absorbent, and it takes those chemicals right in. At least when we eat things, they go through our digestive system, get broken down to a degree, and possibly can get eliminated. But when you put it on your skin, on your hair, it goes right into your bloodstream. It can go blood-brain barrier, can go everywhere, go straight to your organs. So you don't have a real defense. So you have to be very careful about what you put on your skin. My rule is if you can't eat it, don't put it on your body. If you can't eat it, don't put it in your body. So when you choose oils for your skin or for your hair or whatever you want to choose, the olive oil and the coconut oil, black seed oil, shea butter, almond oils, those oils are all the things you can eat. So if it says Vaseline or if it says petrolatum, those are things meant for cars and for machines. They weren't meant for human beings. Use natural deodorants. And you can research. There are a lot of natural deodorants and natural resources for that. Avoid fragrances such as other than the essential oils. The essential oils are like your oil of lavender, your oil of citrus, your lemongrass, those natural oils that they work well. They're non-toxic. Again, your body loves their benefit. They have a lot of health benefits. Avoid toxic chemical cleaning products. That's your Comet, your Ajax, your Pine Sol, the things that most people love because they get that clean smell. But that clean smell has a very negative effect when it comes to our toxicity level and our overall health. And a good point when it comes to just feminine hygiene products, we have to understand that a lot of the products that they use have chemicals in them. So you want to make sure you get an organic product. That's as important because things you put on your body, in your body, have to really be as safe as possible. You want something that doesn't have pesticides, doesn't have chemicals in it to preserve the material or chemical fragrances in it. All those things are really a problem. We recommend doing periodically a saliva test, and that's to monitor your hormonal levels, your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone levels. And because we can monitor levels and we see balances or imbalances because a lot of these chemicals are what we call xenoestrogens. Xeno means false estrogen. So they actually stimulate your estrogen receptor sites in your body. And what that does for women is it affects your breast tissue, ovaries. It also affects your uterus. In men, it affects the prostate. And they disrupt hormones. They can cause a lot of issues. Dr. Pam, I want you to comment on that when I finish up here.
Jackie raised an excellent point regarding the fragrances and deodorants. The cleaner you eat, the less these foul odors come out. And, people that eat, 100% raw, mostly raw, I mean, you can go, periods of time even without soap and water and not feel, smell very bad. Because you're not, if you've got a lot of dead animal flesh in your body, then, you gotta, again, if everybody go do an experiment, just go ahead and put a dead dog under your bed, let it sit there for a couple of days or a week, and it's gonna be foul, or dead chicken, or dead cow, or dead fish. It's gonna smell foul. If you're burying these dead animals in your body's gonna have a foul odor. So that's why you got to put these toxic fragrances to block the foul odor. I remember we were doing a open house at our clinic, and we have a large waiting room area that we turn into an auditorium, and I was doing a presentation. And, after the presentation, we sort of broke up and we were mingling. We had some hors d'oeuvres and people standing around talking. And so one of the guys who attended went to the bathroom. He was like a lean, fit person. And he went to the bathroom. People go to the bathroom. You don't pay attention to what they're doing. But, it wasn't long after this huge foul odor just came out of the bathroom. Now, he was still in the bathroom. There was just some huge fall over. I mean, it's just horrible. I mean, we passed out. We had to move away from the door and open up the door to the building. And it was just, he obviously had a bowel movement. And I mean, this guy, let out just some cows. He's been having a system for several weeks. And so, I mean, so a lot of these fragrances, things that come out of your sweat, your armpits, your bowel, your private parts, these things are from the contents inside. And so you gotta, refresh your body from the inside out. But anyway, I don't want to.
Can I add to that? Another big one that I see in pediatrics, because I have parents who are concerned because their 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, have a odor or tart, they say, and they're trying to figure out which deodorants to use. And you can usually, I mean, in addition to what you've already said, of course, I agree, is getting rid of dairies, cheese, and dairy, which is liquefied dead animal product or animal product. So that creates a lot of putrefied smell that is noticeable in children.
Yeah, it's cow pus. Dairy's cow pus. You can't get all the bacteria out of cow, and there's a certain amount of bacteria in the cow, so it starts with cow pus, and so it's really bad stuff.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, you take the animal products and you put it in your body at 98.6 degrees. Just think about a day when it's 98 degrees in your house, and you take the meat and put it out on the counter for 8 hours, because it takes that amount of time for it really to pass through your system to digest. So yeah, it's a recipe for problems, and people, it's a choice, but it's a healthy choice. So when people talk about health and wellness and about prevention, these are the things you have to include. You have to make choices about how you want to live your life and how healthy you want to be, because otherwise we see the results every day. We see people coming to offices with different issues.
Well, Roberta Collins says, please don't take my cheese. And we better take the cheese before your cheese takes you. Go ahead.
Can I throw in one more thing? That statement of, I think Jackie said, a plant-based diet, you don't need deodorant. So, there are levels to it, and you learn as you do it. So plant-based diet by itself, you may still need some assistance, because usually you do better with raw. So if you're just doing vegetarian or the Impossible burgers and those type of plant-based diet, you're still going to have a problem. Because I just want people to recognize that it's not just a plant-based diet. This is raw, clean, where you don't need to now add other things on top of your body to cover odor that your pores are releasing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree with Dr. Palmer. I think, I eat a plant-based, but what causes odor is bacteria. And the bacteria causes odor. So we need things to stop bacteria, but we don't want the aluminum chlorohydrate that eliminates us from sweating, which is natural way of detoxifying. But what I find is very simple for a lot of my patients and even myself, that using Advantage liquid concentrate, citrus seed extract, just putting 2 drops on your hand and just putting it on your armpits. But it's very effective in controlling odor, and it's an antibacterial. But I mean, we often use it internally, and I think we use it for the cleanse as well. But it has multiple purposes. But something as simple as that, it doesn't have to be commercial deodorants and things like that. But we want to be hygienically acceptable when we're out in the community.
Beautiful way to put it. Hygienically acceptable. Everybody needs to be hygienically acceptable. And just in closing, it was a few other things I was showing here was the fact that you want to choose good oils, your olive oil, avocado oil, almonds, coconut oil, apricot oil, but the amla oil also. But because these are all good oils, good omega oils, they're great for your body, and so these are things you want to cook food and put in your food, as opposed to using other oils. And then when it comes to sweeteners, Again, a whole different lecture, but I always recommend people say, well, if I don't use sugar, and I didn't even talk about sugar today, what are my options? And these are some of the options that we kind of recommend: a stevia product. And you have to find out what works for you. I would say a lot of times, if you're working with a health practitioner in nutrition, you could talk to them about what would work better for you, because they all have different issues that you want to be aware of, that may affect you one way or the other, depending on medication or depending on whether or not you are, what your diet is at the time you start these sweeteners. But there are good options for people who are prone to hyperglycemia or actually fall into the diabetic range. So when we get our raw food, when we get our plant-based diet, again, going to a co-op, because co-ops, farmers markets, you're actually getting what I call live food. Live food, that means it's been out of the ground either that day, within the first 3 days out of the ground. When it comes to over 3 days out of the ground, I consider it fresh food. And then if it's been out longer than that, it's just food. It's a little bit different because you're losing nutritional value every day. So find a good co-op, find a good farmer's market, find a grower that you understand that they are committed to not using chemicals on their food, or growing the healthiest heirloom chemical-free food as possible. Or do your own gardening. That's a great way. Every place I live, I try to put a garden down. It's one of the first things I do. After I unpack boxes, I look for a place to put a garden down and start growing some things, because there's always herbs and spices. There are always things like tomatoes or small plants that you can grow yourself. Eat what you grow and grow what you eat. This is a Swiss chard and lettuces and greens that you can grow very easily, and they just grow abundantly. It's just find a plant a box and start your own gardening process. So it all comes down to balance. It's all about balance. Don't wait for the shoe to drop. Don't wait till you get a diagnosis. Don't wait till you start having symptoms to start doing something. You want to start working right now. So Dr. Montgomery, thank you so much for the opportunity to share this with people. I want people to definitely understand that, detoxifying is important. It's something that we should incorporate in our life. It's something you can do once, twice a year. The more you eat healthy, the more you eat whole and clean, the less you would have to detox. But for people who have families, they holidays, you slip up here and there, detoxing should be a part of your regimen. I consider myself eating clean, but breathing air, drinking water, being in the world, you're still going to have toxic exposure. So detoxing should always be a part of our life. Thanks.
Wonderful, great presentation. And we had a couple of leave that other slide up with your website, please. I'm just going to make a banner. I thought I had a banner, the one with your website.
Okay.
Wellness. And there are a few questions. Somebody had a question about MCT oil. And was that good? Also, can you reiterate detox versus cleanse? Somebody asked that question. I think they missed that, but that may be good for everybody here. I thought that was a good point.
Yeah, the cleansing is basically, it's two things you have to do. If you're eating glutens, like if you're not eating gluten-free, that means you're eating gluten or paste. I call it gluten. And you're eating that kind of food, it will build up on your lining of your digestive system. You build a lot of other debris, unprocessed foods in your digestive system, in your liver, in your kidneys. You accumulate a lot of toxic debris, a lot of the plastics, a lot of chemicals, a lot of material in our food that our body may not digest. It gets across into our digestive system, ends up in the liver. So you want to cleanse that. You want to cleanse those organs out. You want to cleanse your colon out. That's actually cleaning and scrubbing, just like you would clean your house. So that's the cleansing part of it. In kidneys, you imagine the pipes in your house when your water pipes get corroded on the inside, or you have corrosion or calcium buildup in pipes. That actually happens in your kidneys and your urinary bladder and your urinary tract. And there are ways to dissolve those plaques and those buildups, those Some people actually develop kidney stones, which is a mineral buildup that can occur. So those are things that have to be cleansed. The detoxifying is when you get things like the mercury, the lead, the zinc, the viruses, the molds, the fungus, the yeast that actually gets into your body. When you get chemicals that actually go into your cells of your body. You know, one example I always give when it comes to autoimmune disorders, that we actually have chemicals that actually pass into our bodies and get to in our cells. And your immune system is trying to get these foreign materials out, whether it's a virus, whether it's a chemical out, and they actually damage your own body tissues trying to get them out. And the medical community describes this as your body, your immune system is attacking your body, attacking your organs. And the answer they use is to put the immune system into sleep to stop the attack. But the true answer to get the underlying cause is to detoxify, to take the toxins out of your body, and your immune system can go back to normal function. It doesn't become hyper-reactive again because it's really freaking out because it sees things that shouldn't be there. So detoxifying is getting the chemicals and the things that's on the cellular level. It's called a cellular detox. And cleansing is cleansing on the organ level, or even what you eat in your diet.
So a few questions in rapid fire from the thing. There was a question on oil, MCT oil, black seed oil. Are they okay? And then somebody asked about Lume, Lume, and I'm not sure if that's an oil or not.
No, that's Lumi. That's a commercial that they have a deodorant for private parts and pits, I think it says.
So is that a thumbs down?
You need to take a shower.
Okay.
Thumbs down.
Thumbs down on that. Now, brown sugar versus honey. So how about the MCT oil and black oil? There's a question. Are they okay? Do you have any comments on that?
The MCT oil, who was coming on that? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, MCT oil is like a component of a coconut oil. It's called mono CT chain. It's a single chain. Some of the coconut oil, yeah, it's okay. It has benefits.
I think it's medium chain.
Thank you, Dr. Medium chain. But yeah, it's good because it helps improve your HDL. And the other oil, you asked about another oil also.
Black seed oil.
Black seed oil, according to it's been around for thousands of years, 3,000 years. The Muslim community, Muslim world, have always used that as one of their primary healing tools. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that black seed oil cures everything but death. So, for skin, for hair, it is wonderful. I mean, it actually stimulates hair growth, but any kind of skin eruption, it has a very a good healing quality. It's black cumin seed oil. It's a cumin seed. Well, we really prefer the Egyptian black cumin seed is the one you really want to get to. It's most powerful because there are others now that's grown in South America and different places that don't have the same effect. Now, you mentioned honey also.
Yeah, honey versus brown sugar. So somebody asked about brown sugar, somebody asked about honey.
Well, I don't really recommend honey. Some people have allergies to honey, but honey is, again, it's an animal-based product. And for those who don't know, honey is really, I call it bee spit. It's a saliva from bees. Bees actually go collect pollen, but they spit it out. They regurgitate it. Wouldn't be bee vomit, okay? They regurgitate it out, and that's what they feed their infants with. So if you like, regurgitant, it's
yeah.
Honey will raise your blood sugar, for people that are, at risk, which most of us are at risk for diabetes, pre-diabetic, raises your blood sugar, honey, agave nectar, maple syrup. So a lot of people think because it's natural that it won't raise the blood sugar, but it will. And it raises the blood sugar is inflammatory. So we want to minimize that. There are some benefits of honey for like wound healing and things like that. There have some benefits, but and black cumin seed is anti-inflammatory, and so used topically. And some people even take it by mouth, especially if it's in a glass bottle and if it's in an edible form.
And somebody raised those natural sugars will raise your blood sugar naturally. So, somebody raised the comment of expense, and I'll just say a word. I imagine everybody's going to chime in. And there was also a question about detox teas, but the expense, this I look at it as an investment, and obviously, everybody's on a budget. The richest man in the world doesn't have unlimited funds, but they have more funds than the rest of us. But the long story short is simply this: you prioritize your investments in life all the time. You make value propositions, and what I like to encourage people to do is prioritize more of their investment, time, money, etc., toward their health. And then nourishing your body is probably one of the most important things you can do to improve your overall health. Your health is your wealth. And so that's my take on it. It's just a matter of prioritizing things. And so a lot of these things, you say some of these healthy foods are they are expensive, but they're less costly. And what I mean by that is that there may be more dollars out of the pocketbook, but it costs you less in terms of the health detriments and the like. And so, keep those things in mind. Cheap foods are cheap, but they're more costly because they'll cost you your health, your well-being, and so on. And that's my take. Anybody else want to chime on that? Feel free. And also comment on the detox teas before we go.
The detox teas. Using a tea is probably the mildest form of detoxification. They do have benefits. The herbal teas, basically what they consist of, things like senna, things like cascara sagrada. They have components in them that tend to have a laxative effect, or they stimulate what are called gastric motility, make your colon move. And so they tend to have that benefit. But again, you want to be able to at least start off by eating proper foods, because you just can't drink the detox tea if you're eating a poor diet.
Yeah, amen to that. Amen. Well, thanks, Dr. Floyd Atkins, for a wonderful program. I mean, this is very insightful. As always learn with all of the presentations you do. And this is particularly one that's good. I want to invite everybody to join us tomorrow in the Optimal Health community. Dr. Palmer will be presenting, and she will be talking about a very topic that's near and dear to many of us. And let me go to that topic. It is, hold on one second here. See, now I'm messing up here. I got my share screen. Optimal health for our kids. What is the current state of their health? She's going to get some more details in terms of nutrition and the nutritional benefits. And so this is going to be a great program. In order to join the program, go to our site. It's montgomeryheart.com/journey. You can join. All of us are part of the faculty. You'll hear us plus a number of other people presenting from time to time. Plus, there's a lot of other information. So go to our page here. It tells you about the program with benefits, recipes, support groups. If you're trying to detox, we have support groups that give different protocols and the like. So take a look at the community. Join the community. We can talk about things there that we can't talk about here. So there's no censorship. So we speak our mind there, just to let you know. So anyway, join us. And also, before I forget, give us a thumbs up if you haven't already. Give us some love. Subscribe if you haven't had a chance to, and share with any and everyone you think will benefit from this valuable information that we discussed tonight. Colleagues, I'll see you backstage. I'll close up. Thank you very much for such a wonderful discussion and presentation, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, so as usual, I learned a lot, and I hope you learned a lot. Detoxifying is a process that requires a bit of commitment. It requires some thought process, and there's an investment. There's an investment of time, investment of thought, investment of money even. And I really think it's something that we should all take very seriously. The body is the only place you have to live. And you really need to take care of it. I'm taking care of patients in the hospital right now who are hooked up to machines, who are bleeding out, who are just extremely ill, and we're treating them in every way we can. These bad foods are addictive, and these people, despite how sick they are addicted to these foods. So start now. Fight your illness or potential illness at the front line in the kitchen. and fight it in the supermarket, but don't fight it in the emergency room. Don't fight it in the ER or the operating room. But until next time, keep it fresh, natural, and live.